more than infuriates me. I believe we have been completely misled. I believe we have been completely lied to. I believe we've been betrayed. I don't think we should be giving them a penny, let alone 40 billion. Fancy giving them 40 billion and they're not even negotiating what we get in return for it. They haven't even given us a bill. How on earth have we got into this situation? And I've got another question. Where is Nigel Farage? To answer all of those questions, former UKIP MEP and spokesperson on immigration, now an independent MEP, Mr. Stephen Woolfe. Good afternoon, Steve.
Good afternoon, John. Glad to hear you're back. Hope everything's well.
Everything is brilliant. Let me tell you, my friend, even in my worst nightmare, I didn't think it would map out like this. Can you help me and tell me what's going on? And is there any way we can get out of this mess that she's put us into?
Look, John, you had me on the show a few weeks ago in which I was raging about the way that the group of people who justify themselves as in the Conservative Party as supporting British interests from a Remainer perspective had linked up with those people like Clegg and Cameron and Blair, etc., to try and create as much problems for the British government as possible. And that's led into what I've seen, and you've seen, really the negotiations being all in the European Union's hands, i.e. they're gaining everything. And I think, a few weeks ago I was completely angry, and I still am. I mean, in terms of the number or the suggestion that we have to pay £40 billion. Now, John, I want you and everybody else to think about this. Imagine a 12.5 kilogram weight of gold, pure gold, that's used in the market. It's nearly 100,000 bars of pure gold. The enough bars on top of each other put next to Big Ben would be bigger than Big Ben. That's what is being suggested that we pay to the European Union. And I said very clearly today, without a trade deal, because that's not on the table apparently, we're being asked to pay this for our future bills, no, nine, none. We shouldn't be paying them a penny when we're not getting anything back.
But unfortunately, you're not in power. And she is going to give them 40 billion. We don't even know what it's for. We don't know whether we're going to get a trade deal. What should she be doing? Should she be walking away now?
Well, I came from a meeting early on today in which I heard David Davis, who I've always had a lot of respect for, leading the team, and I know how difficult it is. There was Greg Hands on the Brexit team about the trade. And there was a couple of lines that I've tweeted out today, sitting there in front of David Davis, who I saw with a much more firmness than I've seen for quite some weeks. And he said very clearly to the audience there is, we are aiming for a trade deal. They've always said that. But we are now in the process and planning to leave without one. We are not going to take a trade deal for the sake of trade deal. He said, I'm in the department for exiting the European Union. I'm not in the department for doing a deal with Europe at any cost whatsoever. So I think today, and listening to a number of people, there's been a change in attitude about it. And I've also seen that in Europe, John, as well.
Hang on 1 second.
Just
Europe. Before you go to Europe, just wait a minute. Are you saying then that people are turning against May?
No, I didn't say they're turning against May. No, I don't think anyone in the Conservative Party wants to see May go at this stage. What I think they are saying now is beginning to prepare for a no deal because the European Union are demanding too much and not giving us anything in return. And one of the things that I've also seen about it, since it kind of like Clegg, Clark and Adonis trip to Brussels and going, when you remember when they went to see Barnier, is a change in the attitude of some of the MEPs. I mean, I give you this view from one of the senior MEPs in one of the big groups in the European Parliament. He told me very clearly that the German businesses are pressurizing the Commission to have a deal done themselves with Brexit, a free trade, and they're laying down a warning that if you haven't done one by March, we're preparing for a no-deal Brexit as well. because I think everybody is now beginning to understand from the European Union's perspective and businesses in it how much trouble they're in if there's no free deal for them.
And also, somebody once told me, and it was one of the best pieces of advice I've ever been given, when you're negotiating, you've always got to leave a little bit of wiggle room so the other person doesn't feel completely shafted. Because if they feel completely shafted, it will come back to haunt you. And I think that's what the EU have been doing. They've overplayed their hand. I see where you're coming from. And are you actually saying then you don't think we will pay the 40 bill?
No, I don't know whether we will pay the 40 bill or not. I mean, I honestly know. But what I don't believe they will pay is 40 billion unless they've got some form of deal or a deal written in place. And that's listening to what they're saying today. You know, it was very clear to me that even that line that said we need to prepare to walk away if there's no deal on the table. I mean, that to me was the strongest lines today. Now, the question is, I still feel with my heart of hearts that a huge amount of money is going to be paid over when I don't believe we need to. You know, as I said, I don't see why we should be paying 100,000 bars of gold to the European Union. But I do believe some will agree that that's needed. John?
I'm listening. I'm just contemplating what you're
saying. I thought you dropped off there.
No.
I think,
you won't send me to sleep. Go on.
No, I think there's a change of attitude, but I still feel that somewhere along the line, there's enough pressure going out there for them to pay some money. But there's 2 points I want to come to, if I can, in Europe, John, about this. I've picked up strongly over the last week. Such as Europe's business is concerned, and I've talked about the flour industry. The Dutch flour industry gets 2.9 billion euros a year. If they go to a no-trade deal, then that goes down to 900,000. So they lose out 2.1 billion. So the Dutch they're going mad on this. They said, we want a deal. We can't afford to lose this. And the second point is, over the last few days, someone has said to me in trading terms that if Britain leaves the European Union without a deal, then not only there's no free trade, German businesses and French businesses get a tariff of nearly 3%, but the currency collapses. That means Europe's goods are 20% more expensive.
Yeah.
So a German car becomes 20% more expensive than the Land Rover, the Range Rover, or the Japanese car produced in Britain. Argentinian and Australian wine becomes 20% cheaper than French wine and Italian wine. What do you think we're going to buy? And they're deeply worried about this. And someone has said to Merkel that we need to solve this. And that's why it comes out the second line, John. The second line is that the European Union are now getting concerned of the people like Anna Soubry and others like that who are criticising the government here and not allowing them to get on with the job of doing a deal. They're actually now seeing them as the problem. And that is good.
And
once we see them thinking there is a problem, we might actually see them attacking them.
Yeah, you're right. And also, of course, you've got to put into play what's happened in Germany over the last couple of days. Angela Merkel is losing power, isn't she? Effectively, the German population is turning against her, as predicted by Breitbart all those months ago. So the EU is in disarray. We know there's problems in Spain with Catalonia. We know there's problems in Italy as well with massive unemployment and the banks being basically bankrupt. The EU is not a happy place at the moment.
Well, you've got to look at Poland.
Yeah.
The European Union has chastised Poland, and the Polish government said, how dare you? You've got to look at Hungary, where they're turning around and saying, how dare you treat us that way? You've got to look at Austria, that has basically still not formed a government, but the government there is very clearly opposed to the idea of the European Union telling them what to do. In Denmark, you're starting to get new elections. In Macron, in France, his polling has fallen through the floor. All of these people now have got their own domestic issues, which shows us clearly why we had to leave the European Union in the first place.
Yeah.
Because you can't get a concerted effort on how to get an economy running when you're having to work with every European Union political cycle for elections.
And we should be exploiting those weaknesses and those failings. Just before you go, though, thank you for your thoughts. Lynn's asked me on Twitter, would you consider going back to UKIP now Henry Bolton is in charge? Direct question. Can we have a direct answer?
No.
Okay.
I can't do that because I said to you before, John, Henry Bolton seems a nice guy to me. You've got your own view on him, and I think he's an expert in terms of the armed services and in doing a very good job. But there are people in the higher team around him, in the officialdom, and around him in his own team that I just couldn't work with, who I just don't think are up to the job, and actually are preventing UKIP from ever moving forward. The people of UKIP were fantastic. The workers in UKIP were amazing. The activists were superb, and there were many good people across the country. But the people that caused the problems to Nigel, to Diane, to myself and others are still there surrounding Henry, and he will not be able to move forward whilst they're still there.
Thank you for your frank reply. We're going to be talking again over the next week or so, without a shadow of a doubt. Thank you for your experience and your expertise. Cheers, Steve. Stephen Woolfe, ex-MEP, well, he is an MEP, ex-UKIP MEP and spokesman on immigration.